Previously on Horizon. 3 weeks after the Caledonia's resupply mission, Commander Amelia Carter received an unusual report from Captain Angus Mac Ray. His ship had encountered an ancient Guardian transit structure, a portal that activated automatically, displacing the Caledonia hundreds of light years before releasing it. During the transit, an unregistered orange cat, present aboard the cargo vessel for months, simply vanished. Intrigued by the implications of a potentially operational Guardian network, Amelia diverted the Horizon to investigate the portal directly. But while en route, Cale Varys made a discovery that transformed a logistical curiosity into something far stranger. Deep within Guardian archives, he found 8 separate visual records spanning nearly 40,000 years, depicting an orange cat with identical markings to the one that disappeared from the Caledonia. The animal appears in Guardian corridors, laboratories, ceremonial processions, and even on the exterior of an orbital station in vacuum conditions. 2 archival references describe it as a resident animal, and an observer presence confirmed, suggesting the Guardians were aware of it across millennia and considered its presence entirely normal. Most disturbingly, one fragment shows the same orange cat in an empty station 5,000 years after the Guardians had vanished, staring directly into the recording device. Cale has presented these findings to Amelia, concluding that coincidence is no longer a reasonable assumption. The Horizon continues toward the portal, but the evidence now points to something the Guardians never saw fit to explain, and perhaps something that was never meant to be found. Episode 6, The Cat That Wasn't There. Part 4, The Transit Hub. The Horizon reached the coordinates 4 days later. The structure appeared before the ship's long-range sensors had completely resolved it. At first, it looked like an irregular shadow against the stars. Then the computer reconstructed its shape. A massive ring emerged from the darkness. It was enormous, several kilometers across, according to the initial estimate. Its outer structure was composed of smooth metallic segments arranged around a central opening. There were no visible engines, no weapons, no habitation modules, no obvious power source. Just the ring, waiting in silence. Amelia watched it from the bridge. "That's our portal." Marcus stood beside her. According to Mac Ray, Lyra examined the sensor data. The structure is definitely artificial. Cale looked at the image. Guardian construction. "You can tell that already?" Marcus asked. Cale nodded. "The geometry is consistent with several structures we've documented." Marcus looked at the enormous ring. "That doesn't make me feel better." Amelia turned toward the tactical station. "Any activity?" "None," Lyra said. "Power? Very low. Life signs? None." Cale watched the structure. "That doesn't mean it's inactive." Marcus looked at him. "You've been saying that since we arrived." "And I remain correct." Marcus sighed. "That is becoming irritating." Amelia allowed herself a brief smile. "Prepare the shuttle." Marcus looked at her. "You're going down." "Yes." "With Cale?" "Yes." "Lyra?" "Yes." Marcus pointed at himself. "And me?" Amelia nodded. "You too." Marcus sighed. "I knew there was a reason I shouldn't have answered that report." The shuttle crossed the short distance between the Horizon and the structure. From close range, the scale of the portal became difficult to comprehend. The outer ring was several hundred meters thick. Its surface was covered with geometric patterns that seemed decorative at first. But when Lyra scanned them, the patterns resolved into repeating mathematical structures. "These aren't decorative," she said. Cale looked over her shoulder. "No. What are they?" "Navigation references, perhaps." "Coordinates?" "Possibly." Marcus studied the surface. "Can you read them?" Cale shook his head. Not yet. The shuttle moved closer. The structure remained completely motionless. No lights. No visible machinery. No response. Marcus activated the external scanner. Nothing. Lyra checked her own instruments. Low electromagnetic activity. Cale looked at the center of the ring. Mac-Ray said the portal activated when the Caledonia entered this region. Correct, Amelia said. Then we should determine what triggered it. Marcus smiled. I was hoping you would say that. He activated a remote probe. The small device separated from the shuttle and moved toward the portal. Nothing happened. It crossed the outer perimeter. Still nothing. Marcus looked at his instruments. No reaction. The probe moved closer. 50 meters. 20. 10. Nothing. Amelia watched the readings. Bring it back. Marcus hesitated. 1 moment. The probe moved another 5 meters. Still nothing. Marcus stopped it. Interesting. What? Amelia asked. The Caledonia entered this region and the portal activated. Yes. This probe has entered the same region. No response. Cale looked at the readings. Perhaps it requires a biological signature. Marcus turned. A biological signature. Maybe. Lyra shook her head. That's speculation. Yes. Amelia looked at the probe. Let's test it. Marcus frowned. How? We have the shuttle. Lyra looked at Amelia. And the shuttle's crew. Amelia shook her head. No. She looked toward the probe. We're not putting ourselves in the experiment. Marcus nodded. Agreed. He adjusted the probe systems. The device approached the portal again. Nothing. Then Cale spoke. Stop. Marcus froze the probe. Cale was looking at the sensor display. What? There. A faint electromagnetic fluctuation had appeared. Lyra immediately checked her instruments. I see it. The portal had changed. Not visibly, but the sensors were detecting something. Marcus looked at the readings. That's new. The frequency increased, then stabilized. Lyra stared at the graph. It's scanning the probe. Amelia looked at her. Scanning? Yes. For what? I don't know. Cale moved closer to the display. It may be identifying the object. Marcus looked at him. Like a security system. Possibly. The probe remained stationary. The electromagnetic field passed over it in several pulses. Then stopped. The portal returned to its previous state. Marcus waited. That's it. Lyra checked the readings. Apparently, Marcus looked disappointed. Ancient technology. 40,000 years old. And it gave us a scan. Cale looked at him. Perhaps it was deciding something. What? Cale considered the question. Whether we belong here. Marcus looked at the portal. Well, apparently not. The shuttle remained near the structure, while the horizon continued passive observation. The team spent several hours comparing the portal's geometry with known Guardian transit systems. The similarities were unmistakable. But there was something else. Lyra found it first. The energy pathways aren't symmetrical. Marcus looked at her display. Meaning, the portal isn't a simple gateway. Cale nodded. A hub. Marcus looked at him. Explain. Cale activated a holographic reconstruction. The structure isn't designed merely to connect 2 points. Look at the energy conduits. Several lines appeared across the model. They converge here. Lyra pointed toward the center. And from there, they can be redirected. Marcus stared at the diagram. So this thing could have multiple destinations. Yes. How many? Cale shook his head. We don't know. Amelia looked at the central opening. The Caledonia didn't choose its destination. No, Lyra said. It was sent somewhere. Apparently. Amelia thought about Mac Race report. Then the system was making the decision. Cale looked at her, or responding to a request. Mac Ray didn't request anything. No, Amelia's expression hardened slightly. Then what did? Nobody answered. The question remained suspended in the shuttle. Finally, Marcus said, "The cat." Amelia looked at him. Marcus raised his hands. I'm not saying it did. Cale stared at the portal. But we have to consider the possibility. Lyra shook her head. We don't know whether the cat was responsible for the activation. No, Cale said. But it was aboard the Caledonia. Yes. And the portal activated. Yes. And the cat disappeared. Yes. Lyra looked at him. That's correlation. Cale nodded. Correct. Marcus looked at him. You really enjoy saying that. Cale ignored him. Amelia turned toward the communications console. Transmit the archaeological images. Cale looked at her. All of them. All of them. The images appeared on the shuttle display. Athuria, Zephyr, Caelther, Delta 9, Nyx, Proction, the Sanctuary, the Unknown Station. 8 different moments, 8 different places, 1 impossible animal. Amelia studied them. The portal remained visible through the shuttle's forward window. Mac Ray said the structure recognized the Caledonia. Lyra nodded. According to his data, what if it didn't recognize the ship? Marcus looked at her. What else would it recognize? Lyra didn't answer. Cale did. Something aboard it. Everyone looked at him. Cale continued carefully. That doesn't mean the cat caused the activation. It could mean the system recognized the cat. Marcus stared at the images. After 40,000 years. Cale looked at him. Apparently, Amelia remained silent. Then she noticed something. The image from the sanctuary. The cat was sitting on a stone wall. Behind it were several local inhabitants. And in the distance, barely visible, was the Guardian station. Amelia enlarged the image. Cale, he looked. Yes. Look at the position of the cat. Cale examined it. It was watching the station. No, Amelia pointed toward the image. It was watching the people. Cale studied the frame. She was right. The cat was facing the inhabitants. Not the station. Not the Guardians. The inhabitants. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Lyra said, maybe it wasn't observing the Guardians. Cale looked at her. Maybe the Guardians were observing it. Marcus looked from one to the other. That would be considerably worse. The horizon remained in orbit near the portal. The crew continued collecting data. No new signals appeared. No additional activity was detected. The portal remained dormant. But Cale could no longer look at it as merely an ancient transportation system. There was something about the structure that bothered him. Not its age, not its technology, its selectivity. It had ignored their probe. It had apparently responded to the Caledonia. And somewhere in between those two events, a cat had disappeared. Cale opened the archive once more. The oldest image appeared. The orange animal looked directly into the ancient camera. Cale stared at it, then at the portal. For the first time, a thought occurred to him that he did not want to say aloud. Perhaps the portal had not been waiting for a ship. Perhaps it had been waiting for someone. And perhaps, after 40,000 years, someone had finally arrived. Part 5: The Observer. The probe remained suspended in front of the portal. Its instruments were still recording the faint electromagnetic field that had appeared around it. Lyra watched the data scroll across the display. The scan is complete. Marcus looked at her. Did it identify anything? No. Then what did it do? Lyra shook her head. It wasn't scanning the probe's composition. Cale turned toward her. What was it scanning? She enlarged the analysis. I don't know. Marcus frowned. That's not particularly useful. It was looking for a pattern. What pattern? Lyra looked at Cale. That's what we're trying to determine. Amelia remained silent. The portal had responded to the probe, but it had not activated. Whatever condition had triggered the Caledonia's transit had not been met. That meant they had an opportunity. A controlled experiment. Marcus moved his hand across the console. I can send the probe through the aperture. Amelia looked at him. Without activating the portal. That's the interesting part. He adjusted the probe's trajectory. The small machine moved toward the center of the ring. Nothing happened. It crossed the outer boundary. Still nothing. Then it entered the central aperture. For a moment, the probe disappeared from their sensors. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Lost contact. Marcus waited. 3 seconds. 5. Then the signal returned. The probe was visible again, but it had not traveled anywhere. It was on the opposite side of the ring. Marcus stared at the readings. No displacement. Lyra confirmed it. It crossed the structure physically, not through a transit field. No. Cale looked at the portal. Then the aperture is simply an opening. Normally, Marcus said. Amelia watched the probe complete another pass. Nothing happened. No energy surge. No spatial distortion. No transit. The portal remained dormant. Marcus brought the probe back. So now we know what happens when the portal doesn't recognize something. Cale looked at him. Do we? Marcus frowned. The probe passed through. Yes. It wasn't transported. Correct. Then it didn't recognize the probe. Cale shook his head. We don't know that. Marcus sighed. You're doing it again. Doing what? Refusing to let a conclusion remain a conclusion. Cale looked at him. Because it isn't one. Amelia intervened. He's right. Marcus looked at her. Of course he is. Amelia ignored the sarcasm. We need to know what the system was designed to recognize. Lyra was already examining the ancient geometric patterns covering the structure. I may have something. She projected a section of the portal's surface. The symbols appeared to form several repeating sequences. They aren't navigation coordinates. Cale approached the display. What are they? Lyra enlarged the pattern. Identifiers. Marcus looked at her. Identifiers for what? That is what I don't know. Cale studied the sequence. Then his expression changed. The same mathematical structure appears in the Guardian camouflage technology. Amelia looked at him. Meaning, it may be a recognition protocol. Lyra nodded slowly. An authentication system. Marcus looked at the portal. So it has a list. Perhaps. And the Caledonia matched something on that list. Cale looked at him. Perhaps. Marcus sighed. One day I'm going to get a straight answer from you. Cale looked genuinely puzzled. I have given you several. The Horizon transmitted the probe's data to the archaeological archive. Lyra began comparing the portal's recognition patterns with known Guardian systems. Minutes passed. Then her voice came through the communications channel. Cale, he answered immediately. Yes, I found something. The team listened. The recognition protocol resembles a system used in Guardian archival facilities. Security. No, Lyra paused. Access. Cale frowned. Access to what? We don't know. Lyra looked at Amelia. That could explain the Caledonia. Amelia shook her head. How? If the portal wasn't simply identifying the vessel, it might have identified something aborted as authorized. Marcus looked toward Cale. The cat. Cale didn't respond. Amelia noticed. Cale. He brought up the ancient images again. Athuria. Zephyr. The sanctuary. The unknown station. The cat appeared in each. Then he displayed Mac race report. There's another possibility. What? The cat didn't activate the portal. Marcus frowned. Then what did? Cale looked at the images. Perhaps the portal recognized the cat as something that had permission to use the network. The room went quiet. Lyra shook her head. That would imply the animal was part of the Guardian transit system. Or known to it. Which raises an even bigger question. Cale nodded. Yes. What kind of organism has access privileges? Marcus looked at the screen. Apparently, one that doesn't answer questions. Cale gave him a brief glance. That's not evidence. It's an observation. Fair. The team remained near the portal for several more hours. Nothing happened. The horizon sensors detected no ships. No transmissions. No energy buildup. No biological activity. The portal was completely silent. Then at 19:43 ship time, Lyra noticed something. Amelia. The commander turned. What? I have a signal. Marcus looked at the communications display. From where? Lyra hesitated. Inside the portal. Everyone stopped. The signal was weak. Extremely weak. It was not coming from the structure's surface. It appeared to originate from somewhere within the transit network. Cale stood. Can you isolate it? I'm trying. The signal repeated. A sequence of mathematical pulses. Then silence. Then the same sequence again. Lyra began decoding it. The pattern was unfamiliar, but some elements were unmistakably Guardian. There's a mathematical framework here. Cale moved beside her. Older than the known Guardian protocols. Possibly. How much older? I don't know. The signal repeated. Lyra isolated the structure. Her expression changed. What? Amelia asked. It's a message. Marcus looked at her. To whom? Lyra shook her head. I don't know. The message repeated. She began translating the simplest elements. Numbers. Relationships. A reference to observation. Then a conceptual structure that had no direct equivalent in any known Union language. Lyra worked for several minutes. Finally, the translation appeared on the display. Everyone read it. Observer absent. A second line appeared. Question registered. Then, answer that which observes cannot be observed. Nobody spoke. The message disappeared. The signal stopped. The portal remained completely inactive. Marcus was the first to break the silence. Was that supposed to answer our question? Lyra stared at the empty display. I don't know. Cale looked at her. Was the word observer definitely present? Yes. Not a translation artifact. No. Amelia looked toward the portal. And the phrase about observation. Accurate to the best of my ability. Marcus leaned back. So, he looked at Cale. That's about the cat. Cale didn't answer. Amelia turned toward him. Cale. He remained focused on the message. We don't know that. Marcus stared at him. You cannot possibly still say that. Cale turned. The message appeared after we began discussing the animal. Exactly. That establishes temporal correlation. Marcus closed his eyes. You're impossible. Cale continued. But it does not establish that the message refers to the animal. Lyra nodded. He's right. Marcus looked at her. You're joining him. I'm joining the evidence. Amelia almost smiled. Then her expression became serious again. The message came from inside the portal. Lyra nodded. Yes. Could it have been an automated response? Certainly. Could it be a recording? Possibly. Could it be a live intelligence? Lyra hesitated. We have no evidence either way. Cale looked at the portal, which means we have 3 possibilities. Amelia waited. An automated system responding to our activity. A dormant intelligence operating within the network. Or something else entirely. Marcus looked at the empty space inside the ring. And we don't know which one. No. Wonderful. Cale requested the original signal. Lyra sent it to his station. He began analyzing the mathematical structure independently. The message was too short to establish a communication protocol. There was no identification, no sender designation, no location, no indication of whether the signal had originated from the portal itself or from somewhere deeper in the network. But one thing bothered him. The phrase, "Question registered." Cale stared at it. That implied the system had recognized a question, not simply a transmission. A question. He turned toward Amelia. We may have made a mistake. What kind? We assumed the portal was responding to our signal. Amelia waited. What if it was responding to our investigation? Lyra looked up. You mean it was monitoring our activity? Perhaps. Marcus looked toward the sensors. Can we determine when it started listening? No. Can we determine whether it's still listening? Lyra checked the instruments. No. Marcus looked at Amelia. That's comforting. Amelia didn't answer. She looked at the portal. For thousands of years, it had remained silent. Then the Caledonia arrived. The portal activated. The cat disappeared. The horizon arrived. The portal remained dormant. They investigated. They asked questions. And something inside the network had answered. Perhaps it was coincidence. Perhaps it was an automated system. Perhaps it was something that had been waiting. There was no way to know. And that was precisely the problem. Amelia turned away from the portal. We're not going through. Marcus looked at her. Agreed. Cale didn't object. Lyra nodded. The decision was made. The horizon would observe. It would record. It would investigate. But it would not activate an ancient transit network without understanding what was on the other side. Amelia looked once more at the silent structure. Deploy long-range sensors. Marcus smiled faintly. Now you're thinking like an engineer. Amelia raised an eyebrow. No, I'm thinking like an explorer. The portal remained silent, but somewhere beyond the visible structure, deep inside a network built by a civilization that had vanished 40,000 years ago. The final transmission remained stored in the horizon's computers. Observer absent. Question registered. That which observes cannot be observed. And for the first time, Cale wondered whether the question had ever really been about the cat. Part 6, The Unanswered Question. For the next 3 days, the horizon did nothing. That was in itself an unusual decision. Exploration usually meant movement. New coordinates, new discoveries, new questions. But sometimes the most responsible action was to remain exactly where you were and listen. The portal remained silent. The long-range sensors detected no ships approaching it, no increase in energy output, and no further transmissions from the network. The structure simply existed. Ancient, enormous, patient, and apparently uninterested in explaining itself. Amelia called the senior crew together for a final briefing. Cale presented the evidence. 8 historical appearances of the same animal. Thousands of years separating some of the recordings. Guardian systems that apparently knew of its presence. A portal that had responded to the Caledonia, but ignored the Horizon's probe. And finally, the message. Observer absent. Question registered. That which observes cannot be observed. When Cale finished, nobody spoke for several seconds. Marcus finally leaned back. So essentially, we have learned that we know almost nothing. Cale nodded. That is an accurate summary. Marcus looked at Amelia. I was hoping the archaeologist would provide something more encouraging. I am an archaeologist, Cale replied. Not a miracle worker. Lyra smiled faintly. Amelia looked at the data. Do we have enough evidence to conclude that the animal is connected to the portal? No. To the Guardians. No. To the message. No. Do we have enough evidence to conclude that the animal is unusual? Cale paused. Yes. That answer seemed to satisfy Amelia. Then that's what goes into the official report. Cale nodded. Marcus looked toward the display. And the cat? Amelia looked at him. What about it? Mac Ray is going to ask. He already did. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What did you tell him? Amelia allowed herself a small smile. That we are investigating. Marcus nodded approvingly. Very diplomatic. It was true. Before leaving the system, the Horizon performed one final scan. The portal remained unchanged. Cale watched the data come in. Nothing unusual. No hidden transmission. No new energy signature. No evidence of biological activity. Nothing. And yet, as the ship prepared to depart, Cale found himself staring at the oldest image again. The recording from 42,000 years ago. The room, the Guardians, the table, and the cat sitting in the middle of it. He enlarged the image. There were several Guardians around the table. Their attention was directed toward the animal. At first, Cale had interpreted the scene as absurd. A group of ancient beings gathered around what appeared to be an ordinary domestic animal. But now he noticed something else. One of the Guardians had placed a data crystal on the table. Another was holding what appeared to be a recording device. And the third was pointing directly at the cat. Not threatening it, not touching it, pointing, as if identifying it. Cale enhanced the image. The resolution was poor, but there was a symbol on the table. He recognized it. It appeared in several Guardian archives, associated with observation and recording. Cale stared at it. Then he closed the file. He did not include the image in the official report. Not because he wanted to hide evidence, because the image did not prove anything. And a scientist should never mistake an intriguing possibility for a conclusion. The Horizon departed the system. The portal disappeared from the main view screen. The stars returned. Normal navigation resumed. The crew moved on to other tasks. For everyone except Cale, the mystery slowly became another entry in the mission archive. Another unanswered question. Another strange footnote in a journey already filled with them. For Cale, it was different. He had spent his career studying civilizations through what they left behind. Ruins, documents, artifacts, personal records. The Guardians had left more than most civilizations ever could. But this time, the most interesting evidence wasn't a monument. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a message. It was something that appeared repeatedly in the background. Something nobody had thought important enough to explain. A creature that simply existed. And perhaps that was the most disturbing part. The Guardians had built observatories capable of studying distant stars. They had constructed transit networks spanning enormous distances. They had developed technologies that the Union still barely understood. Yet somewhere inside all that complexity, they had apparently accepted the presence of something they could not completely explain. Maybe that was the lesson. Not everything strange needs to be conquered. Not everything unknown needs to be classified. Sometimes observation is enough. That night, Cale returned to the archive. The room was quiet. The Horizon's engines produced a low vibration through the deck. He was alone. At least he believed he was. Cale opened the final image again. The cat looked back at him from 42,000 years in the past. He studied its face. The same markings. The same pale patch beneath the chin. The same expression that Marcus had described, rather unfairly, as judgmental. Cale smiled. "You've been very inconvenient." He closed the file. The screen went dark. Then he heard something. A faint sound behind him. A soft step against the floor. Cale froze. He waited. Nothing. He turned slowly. The archive was empty. Rows of data crystals stood exactly where they had been. The door was closed. Cale looked at it. He was certain he had closed it when he entered. He returned to his console. Then he heard another sound. One soft step. Then another. Cale turned again. Nothing. He stood. Walked toward the door. Stopped. The door was now slightly open. Cale stared at the gap. There was no movement beyond it. No shadow. No sound. He checked the corridor sensors. Empty. He checked the internal cameras. Nothing. The door remained open. Cale slowly reached for the control. Then stopped. For several seconds, he simply looked at it. Finally, he closed the door. He returned to his desk. He did not report the incident. Not because he believed something had been there. He had no evidence of that. The door could have malfunctioned. The environmental system could have caused a pressure fluctuation. He could have simply forgotten to close it completely. All of those explanations were reasonable. And Cale trusted reasonable explanations. Usually, he opened his personal research file. At the top of the document, he wrote, "Subject unknown organism." Then he stopped. He deleted the word organism. He wrote, "Subject unidentified observer." He stared at the phrase for a moment, then deleted that too. Finally, he entered the simplest description possible. Subject the cat. He saved the file, and beneath it, he added one sentence. No conclusion reached. Further observation required. Cale shut down the terminal. The archive became dark. He stood and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he glanced once toward the empty floor behind him. Nothing was there. Of course it wasn't. He opened the door and walked away. Far behind the horizon, the ancient portal remained alone among the stars. Its systems were dormant. Its structure showed no visible activity. No ship approached. No signal was transmitted. Nothing moved. Then deep inside the structure, something registered a change. A record was created. Not a warning. Not an alarm. Not a navigation command. Simply a new entry. A question had been asked. The observer had been noticed. And somewhere within the ancient network, the question remained unanswered. For now, I used to believe that archaeology was the study of things that were gone. Cities that had fallen. Civilizations that had disappeared. People whose voices survived only in fragments of stone and crystal. But the Guardians taught us something else. Sometimes the most important discovery is not what a civilization left behind. It is what remained after it was gone. A station still watching a distant planet. A message waiting 40,000 years to be heard. A road that nobody remembered how to use. Or perhaps, a cat that nobody remembered owning. We left the portal behind. We did not activate it. We did not enter it. We did not solve the mystery. And I think that was the correct decision. Because exploration is not the art of finding answers. It is the discipline of knowing which questions deserve more time. The horizon continued its journey. There were other systems ahead. Other ruins. Other civilizations. Other questions. And somewhere in the vastness between the stars, perhaps the answer was waiting. Or perhaps it wasn't. Perhaps there was never an answer. Perhaps there had only ever been an observer, watching those who believed they were doing the observing. I cannot say. None of us can. And that is precisely why we kept going. End of episode 6.